I'm stunned when I read that you were the first weatherman on the Today Show, because you're not old. And I just figured weather had been there from the beginning.
Well, they did. They had a, and Garraway would do it, and they had a weather presenter. But
right.
I think at that time, John was doing some very innovative things and doing a lot of weather.
Right.
And so I think that they saw that as competition and wanted to bring in somebody who had weather expertise, let's say, rather than just an announcer. So that's how it worked
right,
out.
and or a comedian.
Yeah.
But because aren't all news broadcasts basically built around the weather? I mean, isn't that why we tune in, especially at 11?
Oh, of course.
Well, I mean, I'm not. I don't think we're boasting. I think it's a fact.
Well, no, it is. It still is the number one.
Certainly in the evening. Certainly at 11 o'clock.
11 o'clock is the number one driver. People want to know that the world hasn't blown up, that it's safe, and what's the weather going to be tomorrow?
The world's safe, and can I walk outside my door and what?
And it's a matter. It's interesting. It's a matter of using all of the tools and using the science.
Right.
But then how do you effectively? And that's something that you only learn, that I learned over years and years and years, getting feedback. How do you effectively communicate what will happen tomorrow so that the people, the users, the viewers say, oh, now I know, and so I can plan and so forth and so on.
And when you went to the Today Show, they didn't get you to change your name, which I think is commendable, because it's so much fun on the web, but you're researching weather, and there was a guy who actually wrote a blog about the top 10 weather forecaster names in television. I think one of them for sure is in the top 3, Top or Shut here in our fair city. But there's Flip Spiceland, and there's Ray-Ban, and there's Mish Michaels, and there's
Al Sunshine was
somebody Bastardi, but you're just Bob Ryan.
Well,
they let you
that's
be
right.
Bob Ryan.
But they're all their names too.
But you're probably the only weather forecaster who ever made Andy Warhol's diaries, right?
Right.
You made Andy Warhol's diaries.
That was pointed out to me when it came out, and somebody came in and said,
I remember reading and saying to my husband, my God, Bob Ryan's in here.
Yeah, but his closing line on his note about you watched me on the Today Show.
Right.
And then he said, I wonder whatever happened to him.
Was that it?
That was it.
I just don't remember. I remember he mentioned you, and I thought, how cool is that?
It's funny that reminds me of the story when I was working with Tom Brokaw. Mm-hmm. And Brokaw had started in I think
there in America
Dakotas,
somewhere.
went to Atlanta and Los Angeles, and he tells a story, and it's a true story. He was walking down New York, and he was doing the Today Show, and somebody came up to him and said, Tom Brokaw, we watched you all the time in, it may have been Iowa, and we loved you. He said, whatever became of you?
So much for a network job, right?
Yeah, true story. He tells it on himself.
But is being this is not a salary question, is being the weather forecaster for the Today Show as much fun as being the weather forecaster for a community?
No.
Because
it was fun, and at that point in your career, and somebody says, well, we want you to come and do New York Today Show. I said, oh boy. And we were,
a wife speaks.
And we both were, I was so pathetic. I had drops that I put in my eye the night before to keep the swelling down, and then other drops that I put in my eye and Olga got up and I'm terrible with colors. She would pick out what I should wear, make breakfast, and 2:30 off I would go. And I would meet the driver. We lived in Connecticut. I would meet the driver at the train station. Always got a good parking place at about quarter 3.
Well, that's true. There's an upside.
But as Willard tells the story, they would drive you in, but then you were on your own to get back.
That's not
They
fair.
wouldn't drive you back.
We're done with you.
But anyhow, when I came back with the train, I always got. But it was fun, and yet it was frustrating because I'd get 45 seconds, a minute to sort of the weather, and we had hurricanes coming in. And whereas in a local, you get a much greater in-play with people, and you want to do the best job you can to serve, to keep everybody informed. And I would do an overview of, and now, Al Roker. Al is a great guy, a good friend, but he does Al and Willard when Willard was there.
It's a different job.
Sure, and they say like for instance today, he said that's your national. He didn't even do the weather and tossed it back, tossed it back, and so if you want to make a weather-related decision, it's local, and then you have the Weather Channel. And if you're traveling, if you want to do anything, there are so many other
How did
things
it
out
go
there.
down, though? Did they come to you and they said, well, we want to bring Willard up here and we're going to send you to Washington, or did they give you choices?
Well, no, the person that hired me, Les Crystal, who's the executive producer now
At the NewsHour.
The NewsHour, was the president of NBC News, and things weren't working out for who knows whatever reason.
Right.
So Bill Small came in
I know
as
him too.
from Washington as the president of NBC News, had been here, figured, well, Willard knew Willard, and
Had Willard grab his toupee and send him up
so Willard came up and we switched, and I came down here.
You think I'm kidding? When I was briefly at Channel 4 writing their evening news, I actually opened up the file cabinet one day, and there was Willard's toupee, and I was like, ah, what's this?
And it's interesting. It took Willard 15 years to take it off.
Right.
And
Liberation.
And I remember,
liberation.
how these decisions get made is interesting, because I was very, I guess, professionally hurt in a way, because I thought that I was doing everything in journalism in a way of preparing people and trying to do the very. So I went to Bill Small and I said, you talk about, and Bill is a very, very solid, serious journalist, and I said, how does your view of journalism mesh with weather being such an important, and for me trying to be as professional as I can? He said, well, after it happens, then it's news. He didn't view the forecast
as news, as
being a professional necessity, because in part, I suppose, the way he grew up in 27 years ago, and the credibility, we were still dealing with the credibility of the presenters of weather.
And now think of all the decisions that hinge on your forecast. I mean, there is a whole section of the website that is devoted to what's going to happen based on the forecast. I mean, we probably, I don't know if we have too much information now, but the way we react to it is sometimes so extreme. And we just, as I said, we just saw this when there was a forecast where uniformly all of you were saying it was iffy, it could go one way or another. But it astounds me how, with the amount of information we have now, the way we overreact, the way everything gets closed, the way the markets get sold out of all the bread and milk and toilet paper. So I've never really understood what everybody's doing with all that bread and milk and toilet paper.
Well, I think in a way it's a credit to the great advance in the science of meteorology, which has been so much fun for me to see, in that it is now a credible part of the news. That's the reason we lead with it.
Why don't you?
And so people have come to accept it as being accurate, very accurate, and something you can depend on. 30, 40, 50 years ago, you just say, oh, they say it's going to snow tomorrow.
It's the most interesting part of the show. But except for the movie reviews. But has there ever
when
been
we went to Twister, Arch and I went to Twister
together? Oh, that's sweet. That's very sweet.
And we did, and we gave our joint review of that.
I would imagine.
And we said, we'll see you at the movies.
Why has there been a discussion about adding a component to the forecast, though, much like you have humiture and wind chill and the effect of the sunshine the next day, that sort of rates the global warming scale or the climate change scale, so that we become more aware of it?
I think we have the opportunity as stories come up and as research comes up to mention that and to show that. But for instance,
but since you believe in it so much I mean, you would be uniquely qualified, I would think, to give a daily.
Well, I do believe in it, but I think it's important to recognize that it's an ongoing science, and that those who argue the decision is made, there's no more discussion, we know everything. That's not true. I don't. There are many things that we don't understand. I think one of the things that I've been working on through different things is a way to more effectively communicate the uncertainty. I think if people fully understand and have an idea of the uncertainty, then it will help them make a decision. It's not the weather tomorrow, and a forecaster confidence. If I hadn't some days say, this is something that I'm very, very confident about, especially the weekend or a snowstorm or some event, and other times I say, this is very complicated and it's sort of a low confidence, it helps at least have an understanding so you can sort of make alternatives, if you will.